Like this is the Audit Committee, and basically one of the things that we should be considering is the external audit, but that is not complete at this point.
That's correct. There are still some things that our auditor are working on with Mr. Hales in the business office. They figured that they would need an additional week to get that work together. And talking with Mr. Hales yesterday, there are still some questions going back and forth. The gentleman who we're working with on the audit, I think, has his own process he has to go through for his own quality control. And so as he puts our audit through their quality control, I think he's coming back with more questions, but they needed more time. So when they give us the indication that they are ready for this body to re-meet to review the audit, we will let you know, but there's still work going on.
So what position does that leave us in, because it's supposed to be filed by the 15th of October?
Yes. There is no, the kind of the final deadline to it is November 15th. That October 15th date relates to the budget process, in that when the governor starts to, and that was actually a little later this year, it was the 20th, when the governor's office starts to build budgets, he pulls from the systems, and the form's an ST3. So they pull the ST3s from the, from the state systems, and then they start to do their work on their executive budget that is there. When that information isn't available, they work off estimates that they have, and then use those estimates in determining what the executive run is. A secondary run is done by the legislature, and that gets pulled later, which is, I believe, in November or December when that final run comes. And when that final run comes, that's what the legislature uses for what will be the past budget once it gets to the past budget. So in the executive run, there may be some adjustment between what the ST3, the estimates on the ST3 versus what the ST3 actually says. But that's really the consequence. There isn't any others that I'm aware of.
Now, typically in the past, there have been issues, they go back and forth, if they make any corrections and whatnot before we see that. Is that something that is built into the additional week, or do you think it will be longer, or?
I don't have any indication of that. There's been nothing given to us yet, even as an administrative copy for the audit report yet.
I do have one other question, and I don't know, when I was speaking to one of the representatives, I can't remember his name, from Garmin Company, I know that the cafeteria budget is not in the budget that we vote on. But who has oversight over that budget?
The district does, and in the end, it's all.
It means
in the end, it's all comes here.
Comes here, but it's never come here. We've never seen the budget. We've never seen the cafeteria's budget, just to even know what the component parts are. So even though it's not something that goes into the budget that everyone votes on, I know that that is separate, but in order for us to make sure that we're doing meeting our fiscal responsibility for oversight, I do think, is it prepared at the same time as the regular budget? I mean, is it same calendar?
Yeah, it gets built at about the same time, because there is some the timing is somewhat congruent, because we talked about, remember this year we talked about not transferring $20,000 from the general fund, so there has to be some in step work that's done. Employment, it kind of all works in step with the general budget to there, but that has all been a business office function there. Let me talk to Mr. Hales.
But we should, if we have oversight, we need to see it.
I would agree. Let me double check with Mr. Hales on any of those those particulars, and see if we can get you a copy of that budget.
Okay.
Because I mean, well, to me it sounds very similar to the extracurricular budget. Now, the board has oversight of the extracurricular activities budget too, but there is no budget built into that, right? That's all the money, all the extracurricular accounts that the kids do, right? That the board has oversight of that.
Right.
So I would think you would have the similar oversight responsibility for the cafeteria, but I will speak with Mr. Hales. He'll know more than I.
Does anybody have any questions about the external audit? Dan, have you had an opportunity to do your fiscal training with the?
I did.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yep.
they must have talked about the external audit and then.
Yes, they did. Yeah, there's a lot of information, so it's good to have a refresher here.
Does anybody have any questions about the status of the audit?
Let me disconnect your audio.
I muted you.
So our plan is then to try to meet next week to go over that?
Yeah, as soon as we get indication from the auditor that they're ready to talk with this committee, we'll let you know and we'll start the arrangements.
So additionally, we do have some discussion to come, not about this budget, but next year's budget, the 21-22 school year budget. And Dr. Glover was good enough to share the NISBA calendar, which is pretty comprehensive because it goes for all schools in New York State, and a draft of one from our school. That everybody had a chance to take a look at those. So Dr. Glover, did you want to address it, or did you want us to?
No, I gave you the NISBA information just so you have the kind of 50,000 foot version of all the legals that we have to worry about. Also included is the kind of what we presented annually is the basics of what we thought our budget calendar would look like on any given time. You'll see in the 2021 school budget development calendar, so it should look pretty familiar. The process is still the same, but January being that preliminary budget forecast with the budget assumptions and hopefully the first revenue looks and that first look at expenditures, and then going through with each of the components of capital budget, the administrative budget, and then some extra time in the program budget. Then hopefully by that time having a final budget from the state, so we know what our more solid numbers are going to be before needing to adopt that final budget to go to the voters. The April date, we just got word this week, is the 20th, I think it's the 27th of April, is that BOCES vote. Gina has that date, we'll be getting it out probably next meeting for everybody for a calendar change. And that's the day where we all have to meet to pass the BOCES budget and vote on their anyone for their board seats. And it looks like the 28th is.
You said the 27th?
Yeah, it looks like 27. I'm just looking at the NISBA calendar. Districts must complete budget 7 days before the public hearing. So looks like the 27th, that same date is going to be our last day when we're going to want to put the budget together. There is still some flexibility there because that passage piece has to be 7 days before the budget hearing to there, but we've tried to keep some distance between those because of, we pass the budget, we have the hearing, and then people get the newsletter, and then it's kind of hard for, we had that one year where they crossed over where folks didn't get the newsletter until after the hearing. While there's no requirement for the connection, it certainly makes some sense to have a hearing so people can ask questions after they've had a chance to view the newsletter.
It might be helpful to have, so this NISBA list has lots of stuff on it that isn't that relevant to us. If you just could take the stuff off that it is and put it on the other document, I'm wondering if that might be a better document mean, I realize that the other one is more, the budget development one is more specific to us, but I think that's okay to have, you know, some of the dates that petitions need to be in, some of those other dates that are relevant, that come off of that in this point, because, excuse me, all the small schools, small city school district stuff is not relevant to us, so there's a, and we can still have this as, but I feel like some of those things that really are relevant to us could benefit from being on that other document.
Well, it's just not having a district clerk in place and not knowing who will be in that position. If they're referring to our own calendar and we don't include those dates about the notices and the petitions and whatnot, something might get missed. So if we incorporate those dates and requirements and responsibilities in our calendar, then we have something that we can all work from. Because I know, I'm sure that Karen has left very good models of those things, but just to make sure that the dates, because they vary, from year to year, that they're included. I think that would be something that would be very helpful as we go through the process. Anybody else have any questions or concerns about the calendar or things that?
No, I think that's good to add the other information to the calendar.
So Dr. Glover, will you be making those additions to the budget development calendar?
Either myself or Mr. Halesville. We'll chat more on Friday.
So he comes in on Fridays typically?
Tuesdays and Fridays.
Tuesdays and Fridays. So do you think that there would be enough time that we could have that calendar for another audit meeting, or is that something?
Depending on how quickly it comes up. I think so, and if it comes up tomorrow, then no.
No.
But if I have a week lead time, I think so. I think we can do that.
Well, those were the tasks for the audit. So people's thoughts on moving ahead with our meeting. We have about 10 minutes to 6, which is our typical starting time. It was noticed to follow, but people may be thinking 6 o'clock. So take a few minutes between, or we can pour time. I kind of like to see the 6 o'clock.
No, I think that's probably the right thing to do, because there could be people who come on at 6. And for the people who are on already, just we have, this has been our audit committee, our audit finance committee, and so we talked a little bit about budget, but not budget this year, just budget for next year. Actually, that was one thing on the document that we had. Find it real quick. Was that is that so 2020, 2021? I sort of think of that we're doing that in 2020, 21, but it's actually 21, 22 budget, right?
Yes.
So in this draft, I would think of that as being more accurately called the 21-22 school budget development calendar. Even though we're doing it in
Next year's 22. Yeah. Okay.
Because it's
Because we're going.
forward-looking,
Yeah,
Right.
it's fiscal 22. Yes.
Because that's what, when I first saw that, I was concerned that we were going to have budget discussion in this committee meeting that the public might not be here for, but we're just talking about
Right.
getting ready to do
Projecting
next
ahead,
budget.
yeah. Right.
So
Typically,
that's-
we wouldn't still be talking about the
This-
year's
yeah,
budget,
exactly.
usually it would be out of the way.
You probably, did a cut and paste from the old one, right?
Yeah, well, Mr. Helps put that piece together and I chatted, so yeah, I'm gonna guess that the heading's a cut and paste. Anything to get 2020 off the calendar, I would be happy.
I hope 2021 is better. I don't know. It's
Right. Trying to stay positive,
I'm
Jackie.
fearful.
Okay, so we're kind of adjourning this and recessing till next.
Until 6 o'clock.
Okay. Dan, what I've done when we've gone to executive session is I paused the recording,
Okay.
and then when we come back,
Well,
I'd like to call the regular monthly meeting of the Salem Board of Education to order, 6 o'clock. People would please stand to pledge the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, we no longer have a district clerk, but here we are in a meeting, and one of the requirements that we have is that we need to take minutes and record the minutes. So I do stand ready. I have little lines to put things in to keep things in order, but if there's anybody who would like to take that on, we do have that requirement, so. But I am ready, ready to do that. The district clerk is on this agenda. So, no, all set?
No, I'm just trying to find, is the link on,
You have to click the meeting and on the calendar then.
it's not on the calendar. There's no link on the calendar?
the link for the audit committee is the same link for this
No, I
meeting.
know, there's no, it's like,
Maybe you should go to the webpage.
Oh.
yeah, but like most, until this calendar, it's always been
Right there.
on our, I think I said this at our policy meeting. Just,
No, are you,
It's
I-
on,
are you able to find it?
I can find it, but this thing doesn't have the WebEx.
Do you need
You
another?
can
have
just
to download
join
it.
from your browser, you don't have to download it.
I did, that's what I did from
Oh.
the school, like from the webpage.
Yeah, but you don't have to download it, you can just join from browser. Usually it lets you do it without downloading it.
There we go. Alright,
Okay.
Like you don't have
Is it
to have it
you need it on
downloaded
the
on your
computer?
computer, you
Yeah.
can join it from the
yeah, you can
browser.
direct the WebEx through the
Yeah.
browser, but
That's
Jackie was just
what
saying
it
that
was.
the link wasn't on the calendar on the school webpage, and then it's here, so I don't know.
No,
no,
she's
it's
talking
not in
about
our
the-
calendar,
the
like every,
Google Calendar.
until our policy committee, until Gina
Like-
set up the calendar, I've always gone to my calendar
And it
and
just
click on
clicks.
my,
Oh,
the WebEx
okay.
and it brings me to the meeting.
Oh, so you're talking
Oh,
about
I
like
As
a Google
opposed to
Calendar.
going to the
Got
Salem
Okay.
site
I know
and
what you're
then,
saying.
Got it. Yep, that may be the part of the transition of trying to build the board calendar, it didn't translate over.
Does anyone wish to remove any of the items from the consent agenda? No, there's, nobody wishes that. Do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor of adopting the consent agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. One of the things I did, it's just a comment, that to have the chat from the meeting attached to the minutes, I think is a good place to have that recorded, so that was a good thing to see there.
Great.
Thank you, Dave.
So I will need that for these,
Yeah.
these please
Good.
understand, so thank you.
So far, nothing to add.
Nothing. That's okay too. Our presentation is Ms. Cole.
I don't see anything by name. Liz, are you on? Nope, I think that was Jackie.
Yep, it was just me, it was just me.
That's there. I don't see her. Why don't we go ahead and just move forward?
Okay.
And if she pops up along the way, I'll let you know.
Okay.
And if she doesn't pop up along the way, I'll call her and we'll work on rescheduling.
All right, very good, thank you. I'd like to, at this point in time, open up the meeting to public for public comment.
Is there a way to set that up so it's
Yeah,
preview?
so it's not on me.
Not that one, it's on your screen.
No, I know that, I was just curious if we could set that one up, because whoever,
I don't
Is it
believe
because
so.
I was the last one to make noise?
yes.
So
Oh, is that
unmute
what it
yourself and make noise.
I don't even have it up, because it just gets, there's
So there's no way to see the
too much
participants?
sensory stuff going on.
Feeling
I don't
maybe
know
I'll
how
shut my
many, if
camera
there are
off.
people watching or.
There
There
are,
are.
but nobody's
Nobody's in.
indicating.
Okay, all right, so we will continue on. Moving on to communications, there's the 4A, the capital project update.
For the update, I encourage folks to take a look at that if they haven't. Just because there's a lot of photographs that show progression of the work over time, probably more so than in any other of updates that we've received. The first one's the locker rooms. They are actually, I don't know if they're still over there working or not, if you can hear trucks moving or there, but at one point the missing lockers were mystically found in a week and they are here.
Awesome.
Actually watch the truck back in, have photographic evidence that they're here. They're actually working tonight to get the lockers in. Our construction manager tells us that they plan on being done Friday
Awesome.
for installation. So what we originally thought was going to be a 5 or 6 day install is going to be a 2 or a 3. So that's good, which means our locker rooms will be done here in the very near future after some pieces. So that's positive progress. Folks may have noticed a very large propane tank out in front of the primary building.
Yes.
The heat right now is cut off from the primary for the winter. We're working on, we've done the asbestos abatement over there, that work is done. Now they've removed all of the univents from that space, and now we're working on putting the new univents in. But they all run on hot water. And we can't hook them up to an active hot water system and replace them. So in order to do the work over the winter, we have to put some heat into that location. So that's what that is. That's our makeshift heating center for the folks working in the area to make sure that we aren't freezing pipes or anything else along those lines. The end goal of that work is to have everything in place here before the school year is out. So next summer, when the big work's going to be getting the boilers out and doing really the big work on the heating system, is that once all the kind of the new heating plant is in, it's simply connecting it to the boilers and the primary building is done. And then the rest of the work of the summer here is about the univent work over on this side in the big building in the high school, and that will wrap up there. So that's really the big part of the job for next summer. But primary is working now. So that's what you see out front is there. Scaffolding and the lift you see out there is soon to come down. They're just finishing up the chimneys in the front for the planning and reconstruction work that needs to go there. There will be much more masonry work that's going to need to go on starting next spring. As we're approaching now into the colder part of fall, that work will start to wane because it won't stick in order for it to be the quality we want it to be. And I think the last part for update, back here in the new construction, if you've noticed, it's starting to look much more like new construction. Look, it added through, that target date to be done is Christmas break. Once Christmas break is here, they should be turning that over to us, and then they'll begin work on the circle, on the bathrooms down here by the circle entrance, be in place. But we can't do these bathrooms until the bathrooms at the end of the hallway are completed to keep within regulation. So it's work continues. EP, now that the energy project, the EPC project is underway, they're starting to switch up new lights into places. They're all going to be LED. They're all going to be sensor controlled, and they're working on that kind of full force now that all the bonding pieces are all done and in place. So we're making progress. If we were to talk about percentage of how far along we are, we're about 45%. If you go by billing, about 45% of the project. That work will continue through the rest of the school year, and then into next summer. So we are moving right along.
One of the things that Dr. Glover and I had talked about when we did the agenda was that only seeing a report on a monthly basis, you know, a lot of the information that you get, you know, it has changed over time, and so that it would be better to have a little bit more understanding of what's happening, when it's happening, how it's happening. So I had asked when he has construction meetings, which is weekly with Schoolhouse, just to catch up. So Dr. Glover, there are other ways other than, I mean, we can attend those meetings.
Yes.
They're Thursday at
11.
Thursdays at 11. But they said that they would be willing to make either weekly reports. Why did we go to monthly reports at the beginning?
Those monthly the reports monthly is what they have just have. That's kind of where their standard has been.
Oh.
As here's our monthly written update. Those weekly meetings that we meet every Thursday are production meetings. So it's a lot of what problems did we have last week? Where are the lead times for new product coming in? What issues are we having? What contractors to coordinate with whom? So different work can get done, and then looking 2 weeks down the road or further on where some of the pieces of projects are. This Thursday, work is going to focus a lot on just the schedule on the primary building for from now really until the work is done. So that work varies a little bit, but that's really focused into production. So if there is like additional information you want, something more frequently in writing, if there's a time where we want Schoolhouse folks to come in, we can have them do that, whether to the committee or to the board as a whole. They're more than well ready to do that. That's kind of they're the board's eyes and ears to the project. So if there's more information we want, or more frequent information we want, or we have questions we want to get to, we can actually get to those questions, and they will absolutely help us with that information.
Because I do remember as part of the presentation that they said they would make reports to the board and attend board meetings. So what are people's thoughts?
I kind of think we're like halfway through the project that we probably should have them present to us, right? Just, we haven't seen them since pre-COVID. Right? So
Actually, since we hired them.
yeah.
Well, we got the tour.
That's
But, yeah.
We did get the tour.
No, I guess I'd rather have more information at some point. If we decide we don't want that much information, we can scale it back. I'd rather do it that way, and then we have a sense of what information is available once. So I guess I would be in favor of having a report more often.
A weekly report?
A weekly report, and at some point we want to scale back from that. Even in the report we just saw in the packet, I think the newest picture was 3 weeks old, so a lot changed in 3 weeks. Like there was a discussion about stuff that would be done by October 5th or 12th. So then at that point when you read that, you don't know whether it was actually done or not. So
Yeah, because the playground pictures showed before it was all put together. So,
Right.
they do go back
Always.
the amount of time that you, the amount of change that happens in the time frame that we're talking about, you forget what it looked like. I mean, to have the weekly report would be, I think, a much better.
Okay. I'll chat with Chris and Mark and see what we can come up with.
Also along the line of the capital project, you had let us know that Jim Garrity had spoken to you about
Yes.
the fence.
Yes.
That's over on his side, and you thought maybe it would be something that could be incorporated into the project?
Possibly. I haven't spoken yet with Chris or Mark yet to this. Mr. Garrity reached out probably a couple weeks ago, indicating an interest in having that fence returned. I've never known the fence to be up.
So is it the fence that runs along the parking lot?
Yes.
Or like with the, what, one there
Parallel to
two?
22 or parallel to
Like North
153?
Broadway, right?
Parallel to Main Street, parallel to 22.
Okay.
And
So
there is,
there's one that goes that way, but it stops, right?
yeah,
And then the old one used to, it was
right.
big netted, right?
Right.
Right there.
So yeah, the one that goes behind Clary's and there, that's
Mhm.
still up and
It used to
functional.
go pretty.
But that other one that was there, I guess through some snow plowing, it ended up getting damaged, and eventually most of it was removed. I think there's still a couple sections of it at the corner closer to where the kind of the dirt part of the parking lot is over there.
Okay.
I think there's a couple sections there, but in the middle of that, there's a path that takes you through that wooded area that takes you from the parking lot to the back part of the bank. And he's had some problems back there with some damage and some littering in those pieces, so he's asked that the fence be replaced. That may be something we could just add in as part of the project when we get to the, as we get closer to the end and see what our project pieces look like, to get that up and replaced and put back into use. So it's, I'll keep moving forward. I'll talk with the construction folks on that. I think the way that that we did the bond vote that allows for space for that, we'll double check just to make sure. But I did let Mr. Garrity know we'd probably be summer, before anything might be able to get done to there.
Any other questions about the capital project?
I have a question. So these univents are still the originals
For this part of the building.
for
Yes.
this part of it.
Anything that is a steam is leaving and being replaced with hot water.
Right.
So that's a lot of that is the 38 work. And then there's
Okay.
work along here too for the energy efficiency of the newer ones into here.
Because there was, at some point I recollect that John or somebody spoke with us about ventilation. And
Yes.
the reason I ask is because just its relevance to COVID.
Mhm.
And right, we have people
Right.
sitting for extended periods of time in room, and we know that airborne transmission, while unlikely, becomes more likely with extended time in the same room.
Right.
And so, in my recollection is that we had, some of that ventilation had been closed off.
Yes.
So is that the situation, that's currently this situation?
Yeah. And the reason those were closed off was to prevent valves from freezing.
Right.
There. The way we make up for the ventilation is keep the windows open as long as we can. They don't have to be full open, but they have to be open enough to allow air in, to keep your doors open, to allow that ventilation to come through. But part of the univent replacement will fix that issue. It's just not
Right.
going to help us right now.
Right, well, that was my question. So you would say that keep windows open as long as we can, meaning into the year?
Yes.
Or in,
It might be hard in January, but like today would have been a great day to have windows open. But so and that's the as we approach flu season and as we approach the colder weather, that's going to be a greater challenge that we'll face with the whole COVID piece.
well, it makes me wonder about the mask piece also, just because we do have people in for extended periods of time in closed spaces. So, and when you look at what medical advice is, that raises that question.
Any other questions about the construction? moving on to the next piece of communication, we have received a letter from the PTA requesting permission to use the Salem logos because there actually are, I don't think we have a standard one because there's multiple logos. And again, when I was talking to Dr. Glover when we were creating the agenda, I said there's no policy that would keep that from happening, but he did indicate that he himself had made that determination. So to keep that for the students here at school. So I do think that this is something that we should take under consideration. I think they make a strong argument for using the logos. But I would like to refer to the communication committee. I think we've been talking about logos. I think we've been talking about branding. I think we've been talking about how we share that with the community. So if I could, forward it for the next meeting for consideration.
Can I ask a clarifying question first? Isn't the PTA, I mean, I know they're an outside group, but they support the school, right? So I mean, it is kind of a school, I mean, they're gonna be using it for students, is what I'm
Right,
asking,
right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I think you make a very strong argument.
Yeah, and here's kind of the stance where I'm just taking it from is that with kids, that money goes directly to them. So these are funds for kids to go to wrestling tournaments, or these are kids for warm-ups, or these are the money, or for the French club to go on
I see what you're saying.
the trip, right? So all that money is all to help kids. So this isn't about no PTA, you can't do it, because we know their sole mission is to help our students, and we appreciate their work. It's about, this is direct, if we're gonna have fundraising for the logo, I've kept it so it's direct application to kids. Kids do use the logo for something they decided to do. So it's kept within the extracurricular. That is a policy determination of how the logo is or isn't used, which is where Ray and I had talked about, bringing it to.
Well, I mean, I guess that would answer too why most of the time when you see Salem
What logo?
shirts or Salem whatever, it's always around a sport, I guess is really, and then, well, with the logo.
What logo? What's the logo?
We're working on it.
What was requested?
Yeah, that's what I was at, like, what did they,
Logo with S in parentheses, because there's multiple logos. If you take a look at the website or some of the.
But did they-
no, but
Did
which
the-
one do they want to use?
They didn't specify,
Oh, okay.
just both. Actually, they had it in plural form, so
Logos,
logos.
rather than having.
I mean, it was nice of them to ask. Because I don't think they actually had to, right? I mean, we have talked about having a policy that would limit that, and that's something we should probably do to have control of that level.
But I also think it would be nice to see students that don't maybe play a sport or don't maybe, do some of the extracurriculars, maybe then they're getting Salem logo stuff that just says, Salem Central or Salem Generals or whatever,
Well, some people would like that rather than like a basketball shirt or,
Yes.
you know what I mean, a field hockey or soccer, they just wanna.
Hard to see it outside.
The
Yes.
last group that I encountered that's used the logos or anything related was actually the freshman class that wasn't athletically related. That's where I got my purple jacket from. It was from they had a My Locker piece, and that's through their account. And that's how I got that. But I don't know if any other group has necessarily done that.
I just know you can purchase Cambridge school stuff at Walgreens in Cambridge, like their logos and.
Right?
Yeah.
Greenwich stuff
I've
at
seen
Walmart,
that.
or
Yeah,
at
that's
Hanover.
Saratoga stuff.
Hannaford, yeah, so.
Yeah.
I definitely think we should
Same
push it.
stuff, Dollar General.
To you guys.
Right. The DG shop. And I think Cambridge also has a online store that they run that does
Through school?
through what is the place in
Yep. Stillwater.
Stillwater, that they have like an online store that people can order things from throughout the year or whatever as like fundraising or different Christmas ideas or whatever. It's just kind of a nice idea.
Well, it does expand the reach because not everybody
It's connected to
is
a
had a
sport.
right, somebody who's doing a specific fundraiser because you don't really go door to door anymore to do those kinds of things. So if you give people the opportunity in another format to do that, so and
Slippers for English class.
okay, good. So thank you for doing that. All right, moving on to old business, we have a change in the 2021 school year that actually reflects that we now have 180 student days. I'm moving one teacher conference day and turning that into a student day. So it would reflect 100, it doesn't change the number of days, it just changes the 180, and instead of 5 conference days, it's 4. So we, I'm sorry, I should have asked for a motion to accept the recommendation to approve the amended school calendar.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0.
There have been a few chats about a little bit of difficulty hearing you.
Oh, okay. That's why I sat here, but I will try to speak louder. I do have a tendency to allow my voice to drop, so I apologize. Okay. All right, so,
They say that's better.
okay, all right, thank you.
Keep looking up,
Keep
man.
me honest. All right, moving on, athletics, winter sports, this is for discussion. And the question is, does Salem Central School District want to participate in winter sports this year? So,
Quick on the background. Basically, similar conversation to the fall, just simplified. Winter sports are coming up. The league would like to have information about our take on whether we want to participate in winter or not for this upcoming season. Currently, the start date for the winter season is the 30th of November. We only have 2 sports in contention here, that's wrestling and basketball. Both are considered high-risk sports.
So it's open, like the governor opened those sports?
I don't think those sports are open yet.
So how?
They are, it's the league is doing the same thing it had done prior, is to, if we can open and do this safely, are you going to want to?
But the fall sports it was, those sports were
Right,
open.
those were,
These ones are not.
those are
yet.
not at this time.
So how? So we're just
So it's not
assuming.
binding, right? We're just
If they were to open them,
if they were to open.
did we participate or not?
but the likelihood of them opening it is,
Listening to the governor today, I know. It's,
slim to none?
yeah, it's, if you look at the map, you know, they're talking about hotspots and clusters as kind of the new focus and trying to control those. And if you look at the Pennsylvania border, it pretty much is dotted, pretty much across all the way across that piece. You look at Albany, it's pretty heavily dotted. You know, you look at New York City, and
It'd be easier to list the areas that you can travel to rather than the ones you can't.
and that's getting harder. We got one of the reporters today asked the question. You know, we're at some of these hotspots area are 4 and 6%, which is a better rate than most states. But when you get to that transmission rate increase, that becomes problematic. If things were to open and we could do it safely. I'd love to be able to say yes, just like in the fall. I'd love to say yes to this there, but some of the same issues that we have in the fall are still some of the same challenges that we have in the winter. It's, you know, so we're going to, we don't even know what the rules are yet. So we're going to play basketball. We're going to play basketball with masks, and they're going to, you know, run into. How do we control that? You're supposed to clean equipment in between, but we're saying it's okay to do some of the things with lesser controls in place for basketball and competition, but when we're in the classroom, we have tighter controls over the top of it. You know, as a group, we kind of agreed that to move those medium and low risk sports to later in the year, and these are high risk sports. So I do see Ms. Adams on. I'll see if we see Don on or not.
I didn't see him.
No, I know Mr. Zerzik was planning to be here, but yet, so I'm not sure why he's not. But no, I think that's Dr. Glover summed it up pretty nicely. I think at this point, there's still a lot of conversation in the league similar to last time, it's my understanding. And, we don't have all the guidelines yet. So I think that would help us. And I think we have that added layer also of this will be indoors and possibly then with fans indoors. So we have those additional layers that we would also have to consider, not only about our athletes and their participation, but then how would that work? We've tossed around, some other schools have ideas based on what some schools who ran fall sports were doing with spectators. But again, that's complicated, and I think have to have some discussions about that. So there's two layers: do we participate, and then if we do, would we have fans, or to what level or extent will we have fans? Would have to be considered as well.
There was a question that came in on the chat that asking about winter coaches have been asked about this at all.
My understanding is Mr. Zarzicki's had conversation with winter coaches on this there, and at least wrestling. So there, I've chatted a little bit with wrestling coaches about what do you think, and we're kind of waiting and seeing is kind of been the conversation. But I don't know, Julie, do you have any more?
I haven't had that recent conversation. I know there have been some different contacts with the coaches. I will tell you that Mr. Zarzicki did send out a notice about signing up for winter sports through Family ID. So we are moving along in that aspect to gather that information. But I can't speak to the specifics about the coaches, the winter coaches communication. I don't have those specifics, but I can definitely look into that.
No, it'd be great if they had. I mean, collaboration has been strong in these discussions in the past. So, I think it's extremely unlikely these sports are that the state's going to let us play them. I mean, I don't feel comfortable sitting here tonight saying no because I think somebody else is going to do that for us. But, as far as the spectators, I think that's really secondary. I mean, this isn't about the spectators; it's about the kids being able to play. So, if there's spectators, no spectators, that's neither here nor there as far as I'm concerned. It's really about if it's possible for the kids to be able to participate.
So the regular season's supposed to start November 30th, which is pushed back normally just because of the fall sports pushback. But the alternative is January 3rd.
January 4th is an alternative start date. Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, I guess I understand having this conversation early, but I feel like it's a little,
Premature?
Yeah, like what happens if we say no and then, you never know, something happens and they can.
I don't think there's anything that is stopping us from saying the situation has changed, so we are changing our stance. I don't think there's anything that precludes us from doing that.
So I guess I don't have a stance yet.
Yeah.
I mean, if we have that flexibility moving forward, let's just.
I feel like are they just gonna push it back now? You know what I mean? Like keep pushing it back to that January to the winter too.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they did with the fall.
I don't think there's a winter too.
Well, it's the January 3rd to the.
Yeah.
Originally we're supposed to
second.
start the
Yeah,
30th. So now instead of doing that, they're gonna start a month later, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that? Yeah. So then those 3
Okay.
seasons would be in the half a year. Right?
Sorry,
No, but I mean, isn't that?
I was going to say, I think that was more of a league discussion. Was that not, Dr. Glover, about the games for the January 3rd, or was that the whole NISPA? So the league right now is feeling it out.
That's section 2.
Section 2 is having more of that conversation.
Well, I think there could be schools that, so you had, what was it, Whitehall, Greenville, and Hartford, who said they weren't going to play sports, whether Adirondack League played sports or not, right? They were
For fall.
out. I guess I don't, for fall.
Yeah.
And, and part of that was budgetary, I think. And, but I guess at this point, so we just kick the can down the road and talk about it again in November.
Part of the reason we're talking about it now is that the
league.
league wants our answer
That's
prior
the
to our next meeting date.
So the question was,
Do we want to participate in winter sports?
yes, we want to. We hope to, I don't know. I mean, we assume that we're not gonna be able to.
I mean, especially if the governor hasn't even released that yet. I mean, before the governor had released it and the league was asking what are our thoughts, but there's no release yet. I mean, at this point it's saying no, not happening. But if it does, I don't know.
Because right now, the possibility does not exist.
Right.
For us to move forward, if he opens the door, then I think it is time for the conversation, whether we want to go through it or not.
And I can relay that to the league, that it's, at this point, Irish sports are closed and we won't participate until they're open.
Yeah.
So
Right,
if they
yeah.
open, we'll
Exactly.
entertain the conversation from there.
Legally, we can't do it if,
Right?
if they don't open it, so.
No.
Right, so, as all things this year, pending. All right, and we did at the audit meeting talk about future budgets, but moving on for discussion of this year's budget. Dr. Glover, you did share some numbers with us.
Yep.
But I don't know about anybody else, I'm having a really, really hard time taking a look at those numbers and you've given us things in piecemeal,
Mhm.
and I'm having trouble seeing how everything meshes together. So I don't know how people feel about this, but I do think that this needs to be a discussion that's much larger than a few minutes here at our regular meeting. I think it needs to be something that we can spend a lot of time with to flesh
Okay.
out and understand. So if people are agreeable, I do think that we should plan another night just to look at this particular,
And just budget.
Just budget.
This needs to be a special budget only meeting.
just
That way it's focused.
focused on that, and we can have an opportunity to, I mean, I tried to look at the numbers that you gave us, but
Yeah.
it was like trying to pull different things from different places, and I couldn't get my columns to line up.
I would like it all to see it all like big picture, like how does 2 weeks or last month you gave us some information, how does that relate to the new information, and like
Mhm.
is this different plans, is this all together? I guess it would just be nice to be able to sit down and look at it all together so we kind of know where we're headed.
Okay.
And I don't know if it would be easier to go back to the actual budget and see how it affects the component. I'm not saying that that's what I want you to do. I just really don't know how to make it cohesive.
Mhm.
But I am having, I don't know
Yeah,
about
it's-
anybody else.
Yeah, anything you can give me, because, I've been given in charts because I'm trying to find a way to make it easier to
Understood,
absorb.
yeah.
To there. So this time around with that information, it was, let's just look at operations. If we close tomorrow, these are the things that we aren't going to need, that we think that we aren't going to need because everyone's going to be remote. So it focused on transportation and focused on some of our operations.
So you were looking at as if the whole school went
Yeah,
like
if
home.
we
And
went-
previously we had looked at if just
Yeah.
a high school.
Yeah, there were shifts through. So,
Yeah, I think
because
we
there
need
is
to-
no one remote close way.
No,
So,
So one thing we maybe could discuss for a moment would be, right, I mean, if we close down by the state, then a lot of these questions are answered, and we'll
Right.
say what we say. Now, what we were talking about, it's in the September meeting, was do we do that strategically for budgetary reasons? And so I guess, philosophically, I feel like I'm really happy to see we're still in school.
Yeah.
And it seems to be going well. So, is that on anybody's radar? I would say it's not really on my radar. I think so, and it was a bit just wanting to at least have that on the table.
right.
But right, because some of that information becomes a little bit less actionable because either they tell us we have to close, or if not, we're going to keep right and going. But I guess I'm just curious what others' thoughts are on that.
I was of the same mind. I was just trying to look at what options we had if we did have to take a large chunk of money out of the operating part of the budget, and just to see what the difference would be is if we did move some of the high school to remote, just to see what the difference would be. So when I saw the whole thing, it was like it was very confusing as to what I was thinking I was going to be looking at. So you're right, there are multiple scenarios. So many things are pending.
Mhm.
There's no I don't think, every school's doing it differently, there's no roadmap to how to do this. So I just think, you know, the governor's office did say we needed to wait until after, we should wait until after the election to see what they were going to do. So I think we do have some time to plan a day to take a look at what this looks like. It's just, you know, take some spread.
I'm good with chart
I'm a
paper, just spread it
person,
everywhere so we can
Okay.
look at it
Yeah.
all.
Take a look at it, so.
Okay.
So if we could do that, people are willing to do that rather than try to,
Yes.
I think it makes perfect sense.
Okay.
to do that at
To
this
sit down and-
particular time.
And I'll get everyone back together, we'll talk about that accessibility piece.
One other
How can
thing on the budget was, we talked about appropriated fund balance. And it wasn't clear to me until after our September meeting, I looked into it a little bit, was so, you know, I was of the understanding, it was based on a recommendation from the superintendent, that we gave back $493,000 or something. And it turns out, I think 80% of the schools in the North Country kept more than 4%. And every single one of our neighbors, so Granville, Hartford, Argyle, Greenwich, and Cambridge all kept over 4%. Granville kept about 20%. And so, you know, and I regret not having thought about this in August, but as I started to look into it more, you know, I think it was an opportunity that we probably missed. And from my perspective, you know, that maybe this wasn't the year to do exactly what the comptroller wants you to do. Now the comptroller said he'd like schools to strive, right? It's not like you're going to jail. He has said that he'd like schools to strive for that 4%. We've always been at that 4%. None of our neighbors are at 4%, and I think that's probably strategically wise on their part to not be at 4%. I think that Greenwich is like 791, which is about exactly what we would have been at if we had kept all of that. So anyway, it was a good opportunity for learning for me. I regret that I didn't think of that a month sooner, but certainly that would lower my blood pressure a bit thinking about potential budget scenarios. So
There are reserves that money can be placed in so that it will be spent, you know, for school expenses, so. Oh, yeah, there's a lot of things to think about.
right, and I had kind of accepted that 4%, but
Well, by the time we get this budget figured out, it'll be time to plan the next one, so we'll just keep rolling with the budget all year.
I think so.
Yeah, well, my guess / my fear is that when the election is over, we're either gonna get hit twice within a couple months, or it's all gonna come in the next budget. And I don't know which is worse. I'm hearing a lot of recognition that the straight 20% is not going to be fair. It's more harmful to some school districts versus others, which I'm glad to hear. So that may help us some. But we'll see. But I think after election day,
It'll be interesting to see how it
we'll
goes.
see what happens from there.
So, you know, no one has the answers, and crystal balls would be really appropriate, but I don't have one, so darn. Okay, all right, so we will set another night to have that discussion. Moving on under business affairs, to the district clerk position. So, obviously we don't have anybody in that position. Dr. Glover did share with me that they posted it internally and did not have any interest here from people here at school for that. Were you able to get it posted in the community, or?
I have not done that yet, pending this conversation.
I think we should put it out, that position is open. I think currently we're targeting about $2,400, so that'd be about $300 a month for somebody to take care of attending the meetings, doing the minutes, and there are multiple things that have to be done around the budget, those notifications and different things that, and of course that is outlined in policy, so that the job description is really already there in our policy, so So I think it would be easy to let somebody know. The only thing, I think I was looking at that, the only thing that I don't believe that Karen actually had an active role in was the maintenance of the policies. So, but she did the rest of the items on the list that are in the policy.
Yeah, budget, the main budget, not budget, I'm sorry. Agenda creation came out of my office.
Correct.
But their,
That's
policy,
policy too.
yeah, and policy maintenance came out of, my office as well.
Yeah.
With there, but that's,
But she,
but minutes and the other pieces came from out of the district.
Right, correct, and that's what's identified in policy.
So are we moving those back to the district clerk then?
What's that?
You were just.
No, the agenda formation is identified
stay.
as the superintendent's
Okay.
responsibility.
Are there any prohibitions on who can serve as a district clerk? I mean, who's eligible?
It's a public meeting, the district clerk is only in the public session, so probably anybody, right?
I mean, that's kind of my assumption, but I think that there, you know, historically, it has been somebody in the school, it doesn't have to be somebody who's a school employee.
Yeah, I haven't ever seen anyone as an external there. I also haven't seen anyone prohibiting it being external. There have been board members who have been district
But it
clerks.
opens up a big population.
Yeah, it does.
So if a board member is, they're just doing it for free.
Yeah,
Correct.
Right.
yeah. Most often you see.
Or yeah,
some
they're
superintendents
starting to
office.
do double jobs over there.
Sometimes you get in a bigger organization, like I decided to end St. Lawrence Blues BOCES had a secretary who was responsible for something, and she was district clerk. You know, so she had a separate responsibility, but it's, we can look outside. And, I want to re-hit the log up just to make sure there isn't a hiccup in there, but I don't remember there being one. It's in your law book, it's like under section 8 in the officers section into there, and I don't remember seeing anything in that section saying that it couldn't be an external.
How many hours are we thinking, per month?
I'm not really sure exactly how you would break it down, because it would be attendance at meetings for minutes, the minute preparation, and then there would be additional time to do the postings and different things that need to be done, and the supervision and voting too, isn't it? There's some stipulations there. So it's really, it would be a stipend for the job rather than for an hourly.
But just to give people some kind of idea
Yeah.
of what they're getting into for their $2,300.
Probably, you know, you think attendance at the meetings is 12 hours and then another hour to
Yeah.
do.
People are saying is when you turn towards him, they can't hear you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'll talk to Jackie. I get a little nervous about having it back to me, so I keep turning, sorry about that, okay. So, no, so I don't think that there's a way we can codify how many hours, although,
I don't think it needs to be codified, I just think
Yeah.
if people have any idea what they're getting into,
right,
right, I mean, we haven't had interest in the position, we'd like interest in the position. And I think if people had some sense of, right, it's only regular meetings, it's not,
Right.
historically hasn't been any of the special meetings that the clerk has had to be at. So there's a handful of people who tend to spend this time with us anyway.
yeah.
And so, what's that, Jay?
I said they might as well write.
Then
All
kind of
right,
go
you
on.
can might as well join us and, take notes.
And yet they,
So I feel that if there's no prohibition, I think we should,
We need one.
we need one.
So if no one hears.
I'm surprised there's
I didn't
nobody
see any
in
of you
school.
chomping at the bit to jump forward.
I'm just not very good at it. I mean, I started to
Well, yeah,
try to do it here, and my attention span's not long enough.
you tend to get caught up in what's going on and not write down anything.
What's going on, I know, I have to come back, and, oh, I have to do that. All right, so
Okay.
hopefully, if we were to be able to bring forward somebody's name for our next meeting, that would give you, have we changed the date of the November, still the third Wednesday, right?
Our meeting?
Yes. Right.
Yeah, I think it's the 16th, correct? Am I wrong?
So is that too tight a turnaround to get a
Um,
posting or?
I think the 18th is that.
Oh, the 18th.
It's the 18th.
The 18th.
Yeah, 16th was.
We just posted some things out. We might be able to hit add to the Post-Star. We're probably too late for this week's, the weekly paper. But we can get it on Facebook though.
I was gonna say, what about
Yeah.
the community outreach?
Yep.
somewhere? Yep.
We can hit but the weekly, we're past that deadline. Which honestly, I think if we were to get somebody, it's probably gonna come, someone local. I don't know if someone's gonna come in an hour or so away for there. We'll double check just to make sure there isn't any hiccup for an external, and then we'll get that external posted, and we'll put a quicker turnaround on it. Board owns it, so we don't have to. We can just do it in rolling if we needed to. So as we got applications in, I could get them to you to review over to see if there's anyone you wanted me to talk to, or and then from there, or we got a couple people together, and then have Ann and I talk, or Ann if you wanted to, put together a small
Anybody
committee
wants
on
to
the
shoot us
board.
an email that they're interested, that would be
So we
great.
should probably double check on requirements
Right, yes.
before
Yeah.
we.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you don't, when you posted it internally, you didn't have to look for
Anything specific?
anything specific?
No.
So hopefully that means that there'd be nothing.
I guess one other thing to think about is there somebody in the organization that would do the minutes? And then are there any of the other things that a board member can do, right? So, I mean, we don't necessarily have to hit a home run with one person.
Correct.
We can do all these things, right? If there was somebody who's already come to meetings or would be willing to come to meetings and do that, right? I mean, I guess it's just knowing all the responsibilities and then figuring out if do we need to divvy those up to get somebody interested, if somebody's interested in just, because even the minutes part would be super helpful.
Mhm. That's true, because they could be broken down. Because there are things that board members could do that don't involve multitasking in a
Right.
meeting.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
so can we negotiate?
Yes.
Good. All right, moving on, instructional affairs, is Ms. Vieira, is she on?
Hi. So news and notes. Not a lot, but the things that are happening are pretty cool. So our teachers have been working diligently to get ready for our virtual open house. And basically what they've been doing is creating videos and slideshows and information about their classrooms and what's going on in them, since we can't have an in-house open house. So this way they're able to open up their classroom and what they're doing to their parents, and through this also open up the idea of if they wanted to have a one-on-one kind of a meeting. We talked about doing a Zoom as a possibility, but we know how chaotic that can be, and having everybody wanting to talk at once, we figured it'd be better to offer the option of a one-to-one meeting when needed. The other big thing that has happened this week that is actually really cool, we were able to do it, was Picture Day. And I've heard nothing but great things, that it went really smoothly, which was exciting. We've also put out to our remote families that we are going to allow and figure out a schedule for those students to come in and get their pictures taken, and we're going to set that up on the makeup day. So for any students that missed it this week, when we have our makeup day for photos, we're going to try and get all our remote kiddos or those that want their photos done. So we're kind of excited about figuring out how to make it work so those kids can get their portraits done. And today, Laura from the flower shop here in town brought in flowers for Pedal It Forward Day, where you are handed a bouquet of flowers, but you're actually handed two. So the idea is you get one and you have to pedal it forward to someone else to make their day. So it was really nice kind of watching that go on today around campus. Amy and I had all of them here in the office. So when someone would come in, we'd say to them, you know, this one's for you, and you got to take one and go give it to someone else. So it was really a nice break, I think, in the day. And it kind of, you could see that it just kind of lightened some people. It was fun to do. Only other thing I have today is I wanted to do a shout out, and it's from a parent who really kind of wanted to stay nameless, but she wanted to rave about Paula Bourgeois and all that she has been doing for her child, who often struggles, and how she sees her child just growing in leaps and bounds, and was just so surprised by that in this kind of an environment in the shorter day. But she's just ecstatic at the growth that she has seen, and said that Paula Bourgeois should get some kind of award. It was really sweet. But within that same message that she gave me, she also sang the praises of Wendy Carey and her entire lunch team, because they have also managed to accommodate for her child as well, and her special dietary needs. And they've just gone above and beyond to make sure this child is getting what they need. And brought home what they need. I mean, it's just been phenomenal. And this was from this parent. This was just such a wonderful, wonderful thing to hear. It's nice to hear the good things. So, and I checked with her to make sure it was okay to share that with all of you. And she thought that that would be wonderful. That they should all be receiving those accolades. So, just wanted to share that with you. But that's all I have. Not a ton, but that's what we got.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Adams?
Good evening, everyone. So we have some overlap. So we too have Picture Day and participated in the Pedal Forward. So in addition to those events this week, we handed out our progress reports last week, and a little different needs to do that. So normally we make that part of our open house. So similar to the springtime, our progress reports were put together more similar to a report card style and handed out in person to students and mailed out by U.S. mail to any students that were not in the building last Tuesday or Wednesday. So in lieu of our traditional open house, we too are planning a virtual open house. And this is quite different for our junior, senior high school. Because again, a lot of that is a more personal, surrounded around progress reports, and a very informal style and interaction with teachers. But we are going to have a virtual open house, and we're going to use that as a means to update our parents and families on just course expectations, teacher expectations. Even since the beginning of the year, a few things have changed as we've gotten into our routine. There are a few questions that we're hearing about extra help, how are grades accessible in between the progress report and report card periods. So we thought that this was a way for teachers to be able to just do a short little presentation. Teachers might record a video or prepare a slideshow, or just maybe deliver a more traditional style in terms of a PDF document. And again, similar to the elementary school, and that would, obviously we would want to encourage any parents that needed more one-on-one with the teacher or a team meeting to be contacting the teacher and or the guidance office. So just a little way to kind of get all that information in one place. We know the beginning of the year was very hectic and a lot of those expectations went home, but they do get lost in the shuffle. So it's just an opportunity to revisit that. So as opposed to having our open house one night, we're thinking we'll post that. I'm actually going to be sending a note out on some reminders to parents this week as well. So I'll put that in my letter. So what we'll do is probably open it up the evening on Wednesday next week, the 28th. And have that open and all that information available through Sunday. So giving families the opportunity to have a few days to go through that. And the idea would be is that they'll click on a link. So for example, if my child was in an English class in English 1, I could click on English 1 and come up with Miss Courtney's information and or video or whatever she's sharing related to that course. So be kind of one-stop shopping. There'll be links to guidance and library. We have some resources through library, so trying to kind of get that all in one place, and hopefully that would be helpful to our families. The only other thing, so I mentioned already about winter athletics, so we are moving forward gathering our family ID information with the hopes that, you know, there might be that winter sports season. As we know more, we would communicate that with our families and our coaches. And I think, you know, the thought is that, you know, we're moving forward as if we're having the winter season until we know otherwise. And finally, I just wanted to mention again, similar to what Mrs. Vieira shared, is I think it's been a challenging start to the year. We had just gotten started last time at our last board meeting, but I think we've settled into a nice routine. Really proud of our students, how they've adjusted, wearing their face coverings, adapting to our new schedule. If they've been in the building, our 8th through 12th graders have been in the building on that traditional schedule, and it was a lot to digest and get adjusted to, and I think they're doing very well. And of course, our teachers are working so hard in this hybrid and remote model to really be there for the students and accommodate them. So we just continue to encourage our students and our parents to reach out if they need anything, and you know, we're going to get through it together. So let's hope that we can stay as in person as much as possible, because I think that students do appreciate being here, and I know that we all love seeing the kids. So that's it right now for the high school.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Dr. Glover?
Sure, just two things. The third thing we're talking about separately, which is our COVID plan and where we are. To the board on the agenda is our enrollment numbers as of mid-October. Basically, enrollment-wise, we are pretty stable. We're still in the mid-500s. Our pre-K numbers are lower than before, but that is we've done that intentionally by the regulations that held it to 8 students per group in the setting there. So that kind of deflation of those numbers are intended to be that way. But if you look kind of down through the remaining of the totals, it's all pretty consistent. In the homeschool numbers for this year, you'll note the jump a little bit in the kindergarten years. Then we've had the younger years were in the past, and that is COVID related. We've had some families say, we're just going to hold off for a year, and we'll be back next year to there, and that tends to be kindergarten. And it's been a variety of reasons why. Some of it was just families wanting to keep their children home out of abundance of caution. Some of them, have other younger siblings at home, want to keep them safe. So there's been a lot of health and safety reasons for some of those families, at least for this year, to be on the homeschool. But other than that little kind of increase in the younger levels, our homeschool numbers are relatively flat across the board there as well. So that's where we are enrollment-wise. People continue to come into the district. People continue to head off and head to other directions, but nothing that jumps out or sticks out as odd or an anomaly or raising concern. Just kind of some normal, just a normal transiency, both incoming and outgoing that we have had in years past. I also shared with the board, there's a new retention schedule out in the document. There was a lot of changes made to this document. It is everything that you see in there is highlighted, and a lot of the changes relate to some of the things in new regulations. Like, for a student's health record, if we have anything on traumatic brain injury, we're required to hold on to that information longer. Regents exams. Unused Regents exams used to be something that could be discarded after a certain period of time. Well, now we're required to hold on to those as well. So as some things have changed over time in regulation, there's been changing in the retention requirements. For for us, for the board, it's for your information. There is one piece in policy that in the policy committee we may look at, because the policy refers to a section, just to one section. And I need to double check to make sure that this information is just in that one section, or if it's spread out in other places. If it's spread out in other places, we may need to change some policy language. If not, then we're fine at the policy level as well, and it's just an FYI.
So this is a document this is a BOCES document?
The document you have here, this is actually, if I remember correctly, from our attorney, that took the larger document and condensed it down to here's all the changes that are pertinent to schools. And that's what you have in front of you.
So you'll follow up on anything policy-wise. Also, while you're here and we're doing updates, could you let us know about the buildings and grounds position? Where are we in
It's
filling
there.
that?
Committee just started reviewing the applications we had today to hopefully do interviews next week.
Did we get a good response? Or you have?
No, we had 3 or 4 applications.
Well, I hope you find somebody who is going to be a good match to take that position.
It's a better response than our response to the clerk.
True.
All right. Well, thank you for the updates. Appreciate that. Board of Ed conference reports. I have a couple. I don't know if anybody else has done. I did participate in the NISBA board officer training on September 25th, and it basically talked about good practices for running meetings, different things that we should maybe be thinking about, and when we set our board goals, when we are able to have that conversation as well. There are some things that I would like to have us talk about that we've talked about, but maybe start to take some action on, an orientation guide for new members, defining processes and procedures for performance goals. So if we set a goal, how are we going to measure that? And they did review, public comment procedures. They talked about how the value of communication and how much is not just vocabulary inflection, but our body language. And so many things come through, and they talked about the pillars of trust that we have here in school and with our community. So it was a very interesting conversation. And Bob, I'm not sure whether you were able to stay for the whole thing, but there was an equity and inclusivity seminar answering the call to action October 7th. It was the first of 3 that talked about equity and inclusion, and it was a panel discussion, and I found it to be extremely interesting and very thought-provoking. One of the things that they talked about is not necessarily looking at what you are offering, but actually take a look at the outcomes, and if you are not getting the outcomes that you're desiring, taking a look at what might be getting in the way. So there were a lot of different things, and I think it will help to advance our conversation at the equity committee. Bob, did we?
Yeah, I watched part of it live and then virtually live, and then went back and have rewatched the whole thing. And no, it was exceptional. And I think it's available, so anybody who wanted to see it can see it. I think we may share that with our equity committee.
So we
may have even watched parts of it with our equity committee, because I thought it was exceptional. The superintendents of Shenandoah and Ithaca were and the other panelists as well were all very, it was impressive.
Very timely conversation to listen to. So I found it to be very, very productive. Does anybody else have any other conferences? And committee reports. Tonight we do have committee reports. So we did have I'm going to take it first because it was the first Monday of the week, is the equity committee. We had 14 people in attendance. We met virtually, and it was, I think, a very good start-off discussion about, we discussed the purpose of the committee, the difference between a policy and a plan, why people were interested in being involved in the committee, and what did they see as possible outcomes from this discussion. And so what I did is I did keep just general notes for record, but I also had a running copy of outcomes that people had suggested that we might want to talk about as we talk about policies and plans. So I think it was a good discussion. I do think that based on the panel discussion, the more meaningful conversation that you have with your community, the more meaningful the work that you get in your community as far as, you know, equity and inclusivity. So I think that we just have to continue our outreach. We have to try and reach out and get as many voices as we can involved in the committee. And I do think, you know, we don't all have to be like-minded. One of the things that came up in the panel discussion is that even though sometimes when you think equity and inclusivity, you are thinking race, but there are so many other things that make us diverse, and culture is one of them. So there are many ways that even though we may all look the same, there may be some real diversity within our community, and just to start to build awareness of how that diversity impacts people. So I think it was a very good start to our conversation, and I do think, I'm hoping that not only will the same people come, but more people will join us. We are at this point in a forum type setting as opposed to seated members of the committee, because I do think it's important to hear as many voices as we can in this process. Is there anything?
No, I think, is your thought to continue in that forum type setting to?
Well, until we sort of reach out to people and gauge people's interest and desire to be part of it, I think it might be just to continue to invite people to be part of the conversation.
Yep, no, because I was presiding at the meeting, and we just, you know, anybody who was there, we kind of, the floor was open to anybody who wanted to speak. A couple of people chose not to, but we had some really good discussion, and so then I was, you know, just wondering moving forward. At some point, I think we'll clarify kind of who's on the committee and who isn't. So so people don't feel like I'm trying to twist their arm to get them to talk. I just wanted to make sure that everybody had the opportunity. So, but no, I thought it was.
I think it's a brand new concept for us, so I'd like to keep it open for a while, at least me personally, to try and incorporate as many people as we can into the conversation. And maybe break off into different work groups if there are different things that we want to talk about. I understand that is a function of WebEx, that we can do that within the meeting, so you know,
Yeah, I think
explore that a little bit and see if maybe subgroups from that. So, and then wait, I'll keep going. The policy meeting, we had our first meeting. One of the things that we did is we talked. I'm sorry. Oh, there it is. Policy. Okay. We did policy polls from Erie One BOCES. They did forward to us 3 policies, and they are not required by law, but they cover emergency situations. So we are going to forward those for discussion under policy, not action, but discussion, to see if there is any desire to continue with them. They do talk about extraordinary circumstances, and it sort of just lays out some expectations for
remote working
and learning. We did talk about exit interviews, that we do need to continue to work on our questionnaire form. There was some confusion as to what form that needed to take, and we need to kind of re-look at who's going to be doing the exit interviews, so that we stay out of the chain of command, so that we do stay in a neutral situation where somebody's not reporting to their own supervisor or something that was said by somebody, you know, so that puts people in awkward positions, might make people less likely to share some of the thoughts that they might have. And what you know, the purpose is so that we get a sense of, you know, how we can build a better climate here. So the more honest and forthright we can get those answers. So there's a little work yet to do on that. And we do have a board policy action calendar, but we haven't really implemented it yet, but we've looked at how to make that more workable for us so that we will now have a committee column before board action so that we know to initiate the discussion of any policies or actions or plans so that the background work is done and so we are prepared to bring it to the board for discussion. We tried to hold our meeting to under an hour. We do have items on the list that we still need to talk about. And I think we're going to be targeting volunteer coaches, the code of conduct, which we still have to resolve, and the student member on the Board of Education. So we will, we're planning to meet the second Monday of November. So that meeting is the
Communications committee, so we had a communications committee meeting on Monday. Talked about several things. First was, so the superintendent brought up the need for us to make a decision on what we're going to recommend to the board for the logo for the gym floor. We basically had decided last spring that we would go with a letter S and instead of the general because of, for a few different reasons. So we didn't have to specify whether it was a male general, female gender, androgynous general, and then also, but we actually didn't end up picking an S yet. So we had a few that after the meeting we may have had access to them before. I don't remember having seen them.
They were in our folder in the drive.
Yeah, and so
previous.
we so anyway that'll be on our first topic on our next meeting. The second thing, we also talked a little bit about the general logo, the logo that we'll use in general, and which will be in general, and so that's not urgent, so that will be in a few months. We'll probably look at that. We also, so the probably second thing we'll work on is a brochure, something that can be a brochure that we can potentially a trifold like brochure, but also information that can be on the website, so people have a better understanding of what we do, and so we can point people to that. A couple other things that were discussed were a tagline. We've talked about a kind of a slogan tagline in the past. I was always adamant in the past before we had a committee working on this that if you have to take a breath in the middle of it, it's too long, and so that's something that we're going to look at. We also spoke a bit. We had spoken some last spring about, or I guess it was actually pre-COVID, about what Washington Academy is. Washington Academy, the whole deal, is it pre-K through 12, or is Washington Academy the junior high school? In my experience, it's always been everything, and so I thought we had kind of just agreed to that, and didn't feel the need to bring that to the board because that's just the way it had always been. But even though we had that conversation a couple times in the past, I noted that even when it would get changed, it would end up coming back on the webpage that it was elementary school or Washington Academy. And so through some discussion, it came out that there was, that we didn't actually have consensus. And that the superintendent and then Amy Hoffer both felt like it was confusing. And so that's something we need to probably come to the board with then to say, okay, what is Washington Academy? Because we, in my eyes, are creating further confusion by referring to them separately than, in my eyes, they've always been the same. And so Washington Academy is referred to the whole shooting match.
In reference to the link that you click on the web
on the web page, correct, yeah. So on the web page, there's a link in the upper right you click on that either says elementary, you see it right there, elementary or Washington Academy.
Yeah.
So just want to make sure we're all on the same page with that. So the other piece was, so that got me thinking a bit about the timing of meetings. I was thinking that the Monday before the meeting would be pretty convenient, easy for me to remember, or the third, which would usually be the Monday before, sometimes the Monday after. But now I'm thinking actually that it'd make a lot more sense to have this meeting more than 2 days before the board meeting, have the committee meeting, because it was 2 days before, it's hard to get anything meaningful on the agenda. You're kind of throwing it out last minute. And so then we're gonna meet again before the board meets again. And so really having them that close together probably doesn't make sense. Because really historically what we've done is had these discussions, but we really haven't brought a lot of stuff to the board, and I think we're getting some decisions that are not committee, really none of these are committee, right, the recommendations we need to make to the board. And so I think that potentially we should be at least looking at the week before the board meeting. And
Then it's the Wednesday before Anne, right? So you could put it on.
then it's, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you
exactly.
can tell her and put it on the
Right, so
agenda.
there'd still be time to get it on the agenda. It does, so that would be not necessarily the second, right? It depends on how the calendar falls, but
Right.
if we just define it as the Monday of the week before the regular board meeting. We knew that calendars can be so confusing.
Like the fourth Thursday of the, yeah.
Right. And it could be earlier. I mean, it doesn't, I just think I thought it would be convenient to have the same week, and for us to get stuff to the board in a timely fashion. It isn't, so now we're looking at doing it 5 or 6 weeks later. The last thing we discussed was the webpage, and whether, I think that we started that conversation and didn't finish it, was should we be reaching out to see what perceptions are of that webpage? I mean, there's things that I think are directionally appropriate change. In some ways, it's still fairly menu heavy, and Amy mentioned she's still been playing with some of those menus, and I was like, I thought that had been happening because I looked for something and it was no longer there, so I've been moved. And so I think at some point that may be a conversation. Do we get some input from stakeholders on that webpage? The last thing that we didn't discuss there, but I think longer term that I would like for us to discuss is that there are a couple model policies from NISPA on communications. And so at some point there might be something that we start to look at and then kick to the policy committee. So.
We're busy.
So yeah, there's a lot of stuff. We're just kind of trying to lay out and prioritize a little bit. Okay, what are we going to do between now and June? So.
Good. Dr. Glover, you had, in an email to us, indicated that we could start using board docs
Right.
for our committees.
Yes.
So I typically have given my reports to the district clerk, who we don't have, so they're sitting here. So how would that happen? I mean, I don't even see a link when it comes under meetings. What would be the process?
If you're, at some point, you can go back and look at the audit, like the audit committee has its own agenda. And like the board docs program doesn't care what you call the meeting, right? It doesn't care if it's a special meeting or if it's a regular meeting or if it's an audit committee meeting. So we can go through and include those items, even if it's an attachment into there, where we create another, say minutes from the committee meeting, and we can post it right into there. I'm thinking we can do minutes just like we do with others, though I'm not seeing it on this meeting yet, probably because we're active. But we should be able to take the minutes and that information and put it right into the board docs and available for folks to look at any time, whether that's through the PDF, like we have been doing, or if it's actually submitted into the minutes through the minutes options. If the agendas are to us in advance for what needs to happen, we can get it up and running on the agenda. We can post it. We can make it featured just like any other meeting that's on there. So any of the meetings that come into play for the week or for the month, you can get to once they're active.
Okay, so from my perspective,
Yep.
we've had the meeting.
Yep.
I have meeting notes, reports.
Yep.
We can't go back and add those. I mean, so they would go on this particular month's regular meeting because we made the reports.
Right.
That's typically where they are. But going forward, are you saying to use board docs?
Nope, I'm not making any suggestion other than letting you know it's available.
Okay.
So, and Ann, your question is really kind of the one point of contention is, how do you want to handle minutes? Do you want them to continue to be in the regular meeting? In the regular meeting minutes?
Or do you want to separate?
Or do you want them to be separate in the committee? And I don't think there's anything saying we can't put them in both.
I
I
this
think
is
what Ann's
wonderful.
asking is, how do we get it into that,
Who do we
into
get
the meeting?
physically?
Who are we,
Oh.
how are we physically getting them in there?
Well,
Yeah.
in the end, it would be the district clerk.
That's what
That
we're
would
saying,
be
we don't
there.
have anybody.
That those would get to it, and then the district clerk would need to get them into the board docs program.
I mean, to me, it makes sense having both places,
Yeah.
because if
Can't hurt.
right, it's just a link.
Well, I think the requirement is that we provide minutes from our regular meeting, and to have them attached there, that becomes part of our record of meetings. I'm not sure what the requirement is for committee reports, whether it's the same level of, reporting that we would have to be. So typically, in the past, they've been gone on to the regular agenda, they've been attached to that. So if we do them in both locations, I think that would cover both. I'm just wondering if it would be easier for people to access the reports, or whether they would be interested in having the reports, or now that the meetings are virtual and can watch them. I've not had anybody ask me for the reports, I've not had any feedback on the reports, I don't know if,
Are you using report and minute synonymously? Minutes?
we're not adopting them
Right.
in the committees, so it really is just a report as opposed to minutes, because
Right.
as a committee, we don't act, at least we haven't in the past. But if we wanted to have minutes, I think it would be something that we would want to,
I wonder if you are by unanimous consent, basically.
maybe,
right? But yeah, I don't know what the requirements are, but that's easy to find out.
so maybe we need to do a little homework before we
Okay.
decide.
Yeah, because in my thinking, it was more about just accessibility, transparency, and efficiency, more than legal record.
Yeah, I think we can
Um,
cover both.
Yeah, I think you can, it's just,
Okay.
when I asked the question, I was actually talking about the physical act of what I'm supposed to do with these pieces of paper.
Right.
Get them
Still
to,
give, well,
so, I mean, I don't mind sharing, and I think the more accessible we make it, the better it is. It's just, I wasn't sure what, I've never backdoored into board docs, I don't know what it takes to operate in that. Whether we have access to that, or we would have to go through somebody who does have access, because we can't change anything.
Right.
We can just, it's read only for us, so. And since we don't have a district clerk, I'm reluctant to add more things on the list of things to do. Before we decide if somebody's gonna take that.
Before nobody
job.
wants to take that.
So I think maybe at this point, we'll leave them attached to the
okay.
regular meeting and talk with the new district clerk about how to move forward, about, what their comfort level is with that, so. But thank you for the idea, I didn't realize we could do that. Okay. Any other questions about committees, no? And the last thing under instructional affairs is an update on the reopening plan for school.
I think I'll go ahead and give it from my chair, and then we'll pass it to principals. Because for each of their buildings, they'll have a different, from a different look. I think overall, I'm looking for wood to knock on here, things are going well, as well as can be expected. We are COVID-free, knocking on wood again. We had a couple hiccups in the beginnings, but we found solutions around those, and things are generally running smoothly. The pickup and drop-offs have worked better than I anticipated them working. My thanks to the community and the parents for all their patience including a crossing guard on Main Street, because every once in a while I think we get backed up that far a little bit, but generally transportation seems to be working well. Buses for volume seems to be okay. And for meals, and Wendy's on, and if Wendy wants to talk to meals a bit, she certainly can. I think the meal pieces are going well. We are having some challenges in the cleaning sections. We're getting the basics, the basics are being completed and getting done. When we do those switchovers, we are getting the disinfecting it's into place. But some of the teachers are stepping up big time for us to help us do some of the cleaning in places. But there's some challenges with the amount of cleaning that's going on and some safety there. And so we're going to look into a couple of those issues just to make sure we have the right PPE in place and the right ventilation in place and those right pieces moving forward for the cleaning end. But overall, our custodial staff has gone above and beyond, as they always do, and putting things into place. As for the reporting pieces and folks who are having those fevers, we had a couple communication things right off the bat. We got together and got those holes closed quickly, and it's been running much more smoothly since then. We have had, between adults and kids, we have had reports of folks that, needing to stay home because they went and got a COVID test. Nothing directly related to here, usually directed from home, from outside. What's interesting, at least to me, is over the summer we spent a lot of time worried about catching them at the door. Right? We were worried that they're going to come here to the door and we're going to screen them and they're going to have 100 and then we're going to have that case coming in. But that hasn't been the situation. The situation's really been folks get their kids at home, come to the discovery, whether it's they have that fever or have the multiple symptoms that is enough to make them nervous to take them to the doctor, and they've been letting us know. We're going to keep Jane out, we're going to keep Jane and Johnny out, we're going to go get tested, here's why, and then we keep them out until the testing comes back, or if they've been placed into quarantine through other means until that quarantine period is up before they come back in. So things are running as well as they can. New regulations have come out to some of the screening pieces about how we should, or how they're recommending we handle kids with fevers or kids with symptoms that allow for siblings or family members to be more access to school, not pulling them out sooner when the fever shows up within the family. We've held a tighter guideline in place just out of an abundance of caution. It's what we know, it's what is familiar, and if it ends up being a situation where it's someone ends up being positive, we already have 2 days of a quarantine already taken care of. Kind of our pre tracing work is working well. So when we get our report first in, we already start the tracing off the bat. We keep it in a file, just waiting for the phone to ring. And luckily, the phone ringing has been, we're clear, can we come back tomorrow? And those kids have come back. So for my seat, that's all working well. The screenings are working well. Transportation is working well, and I am eternally grateful for everyone's efforts in keeping us healthy and keeping kids in school, which has been fantastic. To that, I don't know which principal wants to go first. I don't know, Julie, you want to go first, or Karen, you want to go first and kind of talk about things at the building level?
I'll talk about elementary. I have to say, I think it's gone pretty well. The buses in the morning, they are unloaded. Cars are unloaded by 8 o'clock. It's been that way for the last few weeks. It's just been really amazing. Now that I think the kids and the parents and everybody's used to the routine, it's been going smoothly. We have plenty of people who have, between aides and people who are, just stepping up to help or helping get some of our younger kids to where they need to go. It's been wonderful. As far as, reporting and sickness, like Dr. Glover said, I think we were all so fearful of that one child coming in and the red light going off, and we haven't had that. And I have to give a huge shout out to not only our staff, but to all of our parents. When a kid is sick, they reach out to us. They ask the questions, this is what happened. This is how they feel. They don't have a fever, but what should I do? And I think they're just, as a whole, being extremely responsible and just trying to protect each other. It's really been great. And I'm grateful for that. You know, Miss Amy Tift could not do it without her. She fields 90% of these phone calls, and you know, we answer as best we can. And like Dr. Glover said, it's a fluid situation. Everyone is different. But every single time, it's typically, if there is a case of something going on, it's outside of the family, but they want to know their precautions and what they should do. So I'm just grateful for everybody being so diligent and, you know, stepping up and doing their part. So.
Good, glad it's going well.
So at the high school, very similar. I think, you know, overall, we've had a great adjustment to the routine. I think a big help to arrival time, as you know, at the junior, senior high school level. Generally, we have, you know, everyone at their locker, and there's a lot of congregating in the morning. So we really had to change that routine. I think the students have been great about adjusting to that, and the faculty and our aides have shown great flexibility in making our homeroom and our staggered arrival work. So we have not had lines of kids. We have not had congestion in the hallway or at lockers. I think we've fallen into a very good routine. It requires some teamwork. It's new for us. It's different. You know, we've not done homeroom in the past. We're starting a little earlier than normal. But I think everyone's kind of pitching in and teaming up, and I think it's making a big difference in terms of the social distancing with that arrival time. So I think really that's a big key to our success. The students have adapted to only periodically going to their lockers, and we're carrying the backpacks. Everything seems to be going smoothly. So, you know, again, my great appreciation to not only the teachers and all of our staff, but also the students, because there have been a lot of adjustments to our routine here at the high school to make it work. I think it's paying off. And also, I think on the piece of student illness, our families at our level have been very proactive. I think, again, a testament to our teachers and the remote capabilities. Now, all of our instruction is synchronous. It's not all happening at the same time. Some of that is, you know, some in-person instruction, activities due later, but we seem to really be working with our students. So if they're not feeling well, I think they feel comfortable and able to stay home, which is making, I think, again, the difference in students not feeling well. So we've had great communication. We have had some students who have stayed out as a precaution pending a test, and we've been able to get them right back as soon as we've gotten their negative results in the family. So our families, our parents have been doing a great job of working with us. So, you know, overall, I think, you know, we've had some bumps in the road, but we've been able to resolve those just kind of with putting our heads together. So it's a good start.
Anybody have any questions about?
Thank you everyone for their efforts.
And are you finding in the elementary and at the high school that, you know, we are asking them, teachers, to seriously multitask with the in-school instruction and the hybrid when kids are out? Are they facing any lack of resources, or is there anything that they indicate that they need any help, you know, resolving, or things moving forward all right in that direction?
I would say at the 7th through 12 level, I think a lot of the challenge is time. It is very time consuming. I cannot express enough how much work I think the teachers are doing. They're all handling it very well, but it is very time consuming. It's a big commitment. They really want to do a great job. They want to communicate. They want to answer every email from the parents to the students. They have students at home. They have students in school. We're trying to catch up to students who may have not been there. So I think really the biggest resource is time. And I know we all appreciate, and I would say on behalf of the teachers, we appreciate that opportunity to have a more flexible Friday. It's more of an independent work day for students. It gives teachers the opportunity to check in with families. Some are doing some instruction, some are having extra help sessions. But I think that helps. I think we're realizing the challenge of extra help, and how do we provide that to students without having that in person, that late bus. But we had some initial discussions, moving forward, of maybe some different ideas about how we might be able to implement more extra help into the week. But I think that resources wise, we're making at our level the Chromebooks working. So we have the students who need their devices to take home with them who do not have them at home. Right now we have enough for them. We're getting a little close on our numbers while we're waiting for our one-to-ones to come, because now we have some coming back. We have to swap them out. We're sending some out for repairs, but they've been pretty timely so far with that at BOCES. And then we're able to give our students an in-person Chromebook here that they just like a day loan, so they can use that during the day. And I think that's been helpful to the teachers to be able to have the Google Classroom be part of their regular instruction. I know one of the things that I would like to do, it's that challenge of time. I think teachers could use some professional development and some more remote learning resources and strategies, but then it's also that challenge of, they want to use the time for their other work, so we're trying to work through and balance that. So, we're having those conversations on a regular basis at high school.
Ms. Vieira, how is the elementary faring that way?
I would have to say time is definitely the appropriate word. I think what I do see are professionals that are trying to provide the same quality to those students that are virtual, and trying to figure out the best way to do that. So they're putting a lot of pressure on themselves. I think that's the biggest struggle. And it is that time factor. There's not enough time in the day to do everything they want to do, and they want to do it, and they want to do it well. But, we talk about it, and I try and talk them down a bit, and, they're doing a phenomenal job. They really are. They've got the teaching aspects up there. They've got support materials for the virtual. I see it, and I hear it from the parents, and, we have our struggles of trying to reach all of our kids, and that's our struggle, so that's kind of where we're at. It's, I think Julie, she has far more kids on the remote end of things as a whole. So I think that she has even more challenges. And also for me, it's, one teacher, maybe two teachers per kid, where she has, I look at my own daughter's schedule, and she's got 8 different classes, and I think, how do they keep getting all this stuff out to her? So there's a lot more pieces going on at the high school, and I think it's just a different kind of a juggle. I have one teacher, but they're trying to juggle all these aspects of it, including modifications and every other piece, and working with the special education department to make sure that every kid is getting what they need. So I think it's just that time, and I don't think it's resources. I think they're doing a great job of that. I think it's a lot of it's the pressure they're putting on themselves to make sure that it is up to their standards. So.
Well, we could offer resources, but I'm afraid we're a little short on figuring out how to give them extra time. But we do appreciate everything that everybody is doing. So I'm glad that we are in school. I'm glad that the kids are moving forward with some in-person opportunities. And every day I wake up and I think, yeah, we got another day. So we're just a little closer. So that's good. Does anybody else have any questions or concerns? Thank you. Thank you for all you do, both of you. Thank you. Dr. Glover, is there anything else that we need to?
Not at this point with the with the COVID plan, we're continuing to pay attention. We, when we have a plan ready to go and the phone rings and says, if we end up having a positive, where we will close for at least 24 hours to start with the contact tracing piece to get started in earnest. And then we'll follow the health department's lead for wherever they lead us from there. I do believe I included in there just kind of a draft, kind of 50,000 foot look at here we are in hybrid. What happens if we end up going full in person? What happens if we end up, going to a fully remote? And then what happens in the changes in there, just for the kind of big picture pieces to hit. That we're going to. It's still in the draft. I need to review with the principal some more on for those ideas, so we can get those ideas out, so folks have those understandings preemptively to there. But right now we are taking it day by day.
Thank you for that. So did Ms. Cole ever?
Nope, I didn't. I marked down to send her an email. Unless we missed wires or cross times or to there, but we will work on getting her back.
All right, so we'll move on to personnel. I understand that the first item, changes in the workday for cafeteria workers, is your recommendation to have us table?
Yes, if the board could please. It's Ms. Carey and I had the conversation a couple weeks ago, talked over where our numbers were, looked at kind of what we anticipated happening is moving forward with meals, and decided that a 4-day week would work well. And then last week she had like 20 kids jump on board out of the blue. So a little bit nervous about undercutting or not having enough there. So if we could just kind of postpone that indefinitely, there may be a time where it comes back where it's appropriate. But if we continue to have services, need the services moving forward, or if we go full remote, we have to turn to meals more similar to what we did last spring. We're going to need those 5 days. So if we could just table that for now, we'd appreciate it.
So we have no intention of, at this point, we have no intention of, we don't have a time when we're going to revisit it. Just be
No, I don't have a specific time, because it's, we didn't do it right up front because we're trying to gauge where people were. And at the beginning of the school year, we just didn't see the intake that we thought we were going to see. And then all of a sudden, here it is. Now, is this a blip? Maybe. But we want to make sure it's a blip before it, and then say, let's go to 4 days rather than, and then need to come back and say, nope, we need to go 5 days again because of the need. And there's like 85 breakfasts that need to be prepared for Monday mornings, and they need Friday to help do that work.
So, I'm taking the minutes. How do I note this? Just
I don't know if we have to note it. There's no motion made.
no
Right?
motion?
I mean, we had some discussion about the motion, so. We could make the motion and then table the motion. If we wanted
Is
to,
that what we should do?
if we wanted to reflect in the minutes that we had the conversation, probably.
Yeah.
So, I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
And then I'll also make the motion to table it.
Second.
Also,
We should vote on that, on
we
my
should-
motion to table.
Okay, so on the motion to table,
Yes.
all those in favor in tabling the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Bob. Just trying to make sure I wanted it.
No, I
The next item up for discussion is change in workday 4 and 8. Do I have a motion to extend Kate Gary to a 5-day work week and increase her work hours from 29 hours to 32.5 effective the 1st of October?
So moved.
Second.
This also is one that, I had entered into conversation with Dr. Glover about because, I have concerns about how this would play out. And I know that you've had conversations with the school attorney. I also have had conversations with the school attorney about it. And one of the things that I have learned is there's never a straight line between 2 points, especially when you come to municipal government, because there are so many different things that need to be taken into consideration, and I do know that. But I do not think at this point that we have all of the information that we need to make a good decision about this right now. I would suggest also postponing or tabling this discussion until we have all of the information from the school attorney about how best to move forward. But that,
So I guess I would move that we postpone to the meeting immediately following us having that information.
Second.
All those in favor of postponing until we have all of the information to make this decision, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried, 4-0. If there's no objection, I'd like to combine C, D, E, and F into one motion. The appointment of the assistant head mechanic, that would be Joel Morrison. Approving volunteer coach for field hockey, Sandy Adams. Terminating employment of Andy Harrington, and recall of Holly Keys to her new position.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I didn't write it down. I made the motion, I'm sorry.
I made the motion, I think.
Thank you.
Dan, you made the minutes yet, Dan? Just wondering if Dan had made the minutes yet.
I feel like he's really just trying to make all
The
of
two of them started us off strong tonight.
And the last item is the business manager position, and it's for discussion, and I believe it's to, how do we proceed after Mr. Hale's time here is finished. So he is committed until when?
Through the end of the calendar year.
Oh.
That's there through December 31st. That's there, probably through Christmas break is probably where it will be. There is opportunity to share this. The position, the business manager, individual themselves, wouldn't be till next school year for that to happen. Maybe a possibility, and I haven't had a ton of conversations yet on this part, of actually creating a central business office. There isn't one in this postings, so it would be new here. So I have to do some talking around to see if there's other schools that might be interested in doing that. Bless you. Basically, that takes all the business operations and puts them in one location that run through BOCES. It's a model this was the first district I've worked in that didn't have that model. We had our own pieces into place. It generally creates a savings for the district because you're pooling your resources. It does generate aid, so it creates a revenue, the expense aid types of things. But I don't know if we have any dancing partners because there's the disadvantages of sharing positions is that you lose some control over those positions. So and when you need something, it's not as easy as opening the door, picking up the phone, and they're just down the hall. They may be at a meeting in another school district or at BOCES or otherwise occupied with other responsibilities. But there is opportunities for sharing, but it's just the next year. My immediate concern is this year. When we talked about the budget, what are we going to do with the budget, and all those pieces, there's a lot going on here in the business side of the house that not to have a business manager in place is hard. We still have two projects, two building projects we need to manage and make sure all those stay up and up to date, along with our daily operations, business-wise, on top of building the 2021 budget, on top of whatever we have to do to this budget. It's looking to share and looking to get our own create some issues, but from my seat, not having someone in the seat to call their own is going to be hard for the next 6 months for all of us to be able to put some pieces together. There are other interims out there that may have interest in the second half of the year. Some folks just weren't available in the first half of the year. Some folks who just said no, they weren't interested in the spot at all. So there's opportunity still to bring in another interim. I think John's.
Did we advertise this?
For the interim?
We did it for an interim, but did we advertise the position, like, do we have outside applicants other than interim people? That's what I'm asking.
No, we have had people who have kind of on their own said, we heard that there's this vacancy and we have an interest. So we do have folks who have expressed interest in,
Anybody with experience?
Yes. But those were all unsolicited, too there. There is an applicant pool out there. There is quality in it. It's not necessarily a large pool that's out there, but there is one out there. And I'm afraid it's not a spot where money savings in salary is going to be an opportunity. The past few have been hired at quite a decent rate.
How much, if you had to give odds,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think the odds are that the shared position would go forward?
Sharing the business manager themselves,
Yeah.
I would put closer to 85% or higher that would happen, that we could make that happen. The shared business office model is much less. It might not be 50-50.
Who would we look to share with? Anybody local?
There's one district who has a business manager retiring and has expressed interest in possibly sharing next year in that spot. At one point, I did have a conversation about sharing a central business office with with Fort Edward. But they're now up with CDES and doing their business model, and they're looking to merge because of their financial situation. So I'm not sure that's going to be a viable creation. If there were a third district in there, that would be a possibility, but I don't know if there is.
So that might be shooting a little high, but we're really just looking at, we need to make sure that we have somebody in the business manager position, so that we have somebody that has oversight over so many things that go on in that office. So I wouldn't want to, put all my eggs in the basket of having a shared district one. But it would be, the reason I asked about the odds is like, do we try to find somebody who is willing to work with us to get to the end of the year in anticipation of somebody else taking over in a shared position, or the likelihood not very high, because we have talked with other districts and it's turned out that, for one reason or another, they wanted to maintain that control, as you say, over their own position. Do we need to move forward looking for somebody who would be willing to take on that position?
I guess my concern is about all the switching. Like, we're gonna have this person until the end of December, then we're gonna have another person, then we're gonna have to possibly hire another person. It almost seems like it would be better to find somebody that we can call our own that's gonna be in that position for a while. With all the construction and all the different business office, I mean, to get somebody in there up and running is gonna take time. So all these transitions from people is not gonna be a good situation.
Sure.
but then there's the financial aspect too, I don't,
Would there be a possibility of like hiring someone as our own, if you will, with a plan of exploring the option or
Of sharing them out?
of sharing them at a later date, so we'd have somebody here. I don't know if that's.
I think we could say, if we were gonna head that direction, I'd wanna get the other district involved with this hiring.
Right.
But have actually set that expectation that it is Salem only for the remainder of the 2021 school year, and then, but starting 21, 22, it's a shared position between two districts. I think we can do that. It's just, needing to work with the other district in getting parameters set before we actually have the hire. The advantage we have, the difference with this that we've had with some other places, is that we both have vacancies. Whereas, when we looked at the Cambridge share, they had a position, we had a vacancy. When we looked at Greenwich, they had the position filled, we had the vacancy. Here we both have a vacancy, so it's a little more evenly yoked, if you will, and vested interest.
Are there any hidden costs associated with sharing in that if you have somebody for half-time or less than full-time, are there things that in the past our business manager's done that this person's not going to do that somebody else will have to do? Or can that be absorbed?
Possibly.
Possibly can be absorbed, possibly can be.
Well, that works out to the kind of hammering between the expectation between the districts on, for example, our records retention, right? That was something Karen did. So for there is that the type of work we would say, no, that would not be part of the expectation, so we need to have that picked up somewhere else. That would be conversation between the two.
Right, because it wasn't a part-time position. If we're turning it into a part-time position, then
Right.
in effect for us.
So there's some of those things now, like that's all the FOIL requests for those pieces. The district clerk we're working on separately. There are those types of things in what Karen did, or what that position did with Karen here, that we're just part of the job here because it's been part of the job here that we would have to find another means to do so.
I just want to make sure we're taking into account those expenses as well.
And there's a difference between just outright sharing and going through BOCES to share.
Right.
Because there is an additional cost, if I'm
Because they're
understanding it
BOCES.
correctly, if you go through BOCES, there's an administrative cost, but on the other end, we don't have any additional costs in retirement, because BOCES takes that on, through their unit. So, there are other ways we could actually just share. We wouldn't have to go through BOCES. So there are multiple conversations that we can
Right.
have.
way to go.
I guess I'd be interested in seeing a partial budget of how does this all shake out, right? So we have paidability, but we have administrative costs, and then we have that, right? I mean, retirement piece, time value of money when we have to spend money. So I guess it makes sense to me that we would, that the finances would play into my thinking on it.
Agreed.
I'm chuckling because I'll talk to the business manager on that who would do that work, and that's the position we're talking about. But I can work with John on some of those pieces.
But I think that some of this is not necessarily specific to the business official, it's specific to sharing, right? It's specific to working through BOCES, right? It's gonna be the same thing if we're talking about buildings and grounds or any of these positions that we talk about sharing. I think that concept would hold across them is, right, we talk about that's aidable, but then we have administrative costs, and then we talk about retirement and our obligations there, and I just don't know how it all shakes out. And I think it would be similar between those positions, I think. I don't know where to start thinking about that. Maybe somebody's already gone through that thought process.
I have basics and conceptual level, but not details.
Right.
Like what Ann described as, that BOCES share. There is the administrative cost, which is the additional costs that are that, but then those liability costs become part of the BOCES administrative budget, which we only then pay a portion of, through the years. What that looks like, I don't know. You know, I don't, it's that level of granular, there's a.
I mean, it's hard for me to believe that we're getting something for nothing, it's just
Yeah.
gonna, you know, but potentially if some of those costs are shared among everybody and
Yeah.
the people who actually partake benefit.
Because one of the challenges in sharing equally, especially when you're not, well, they don't have vacancies, is that who owns, one of the first things we talk about, who owns the position.
Right.
Because the person who owns the position is the person who's gonna have that, you know, that retirement liability if there ends up being one. And then it works from there. Which is why they tend to go to BOCES, because then that liability gets shared
Right.
across the way. But that's still another conversation with BOCES too.
Right.
Yeah, and I can certainly start forward with those conversations. But let me chat with the other superintendent and get a little deeper than just see what the temperature is, you know, in the water, and see how far along we can get. And if it looks like, yes, we can make this happen for September, and kind of to Dan's idea of, can we hire this position now with the expectation that in September it becomes shared with another district. That way we have someone here that can learn the road, and actually it may be beneficial, to be honest. You know, at least get into one district, get in, get their feet wet, get an understanding of the district here. And then as the year approached to the end, we would certainly afford opportunities for whomever that would be to get over to the other district, you know, get some training up, to get some understanding in that other district as things were to move forward. But let me talk a little more, start talking a little more seriously. And I'll get back to you information as I can get it to you.
Okay.
And move from there. But
Moving on to new business, do we have a motion to approve the request from the Salem PTA to use the facilities on Saturday, October 31st, 2020? This request is contingent upon non-interference with school activities. So
Second.
the request changed from an initial request to a backup request,
Mhm.
right? That hasn't done, but only to use the school if there was an increase in COVID cases. I'm not really sure where that puts us, Dr. Glover, if we have an increase in COVID, can we even be using the school grounds for a gathering?
I mean, the things increase with the COVID where between now and Halloween, the state says, you know, we're closed down. We wouldn't be available for this piece. What the PTA is doing, I've done before in other districts. The whole thing, it's neat to see the creative ideas that folks do, and I really appreciate their efforts. I'm actually a little leery on even doing this as a backup. You know, we're going to be sending out probably some information from the Department of Health from the state level that's going to talk about social distancing and doing things at home and doing non-traditional Halloween celebrations and those pieces there. And then if we end up being the central locating spot for trick-or-treating, kind of sends a mixed message a bit. But that's.
Well, I mean, I guess could it be contingent upon there's no uprise in the amount of COVID or?
But apparently that we're.
This could cause.
They've got another plan.
Right.
And
So this is a backup
just-
plan.
This is a backup plan. And I'm really not sure I can speak to their primary plan either. I mean, I only have the
Just
document.
bits and pieces like a parade through town or something, starting at the white church and going towards the courthouse, right?
Yeah, there's a bit of a parade in town to go on, and then I think they wanted to have folks parked along the street, and keep nodding, Karen, if I'm getting this right. Folks parked along the street in their trunks to decorate it for kids to kind of trunk and treat along the way. But it also includes some of the parking lot at the White Church.
Gotcha.
That's like Plan A.
Which doesn't have anything to do with us.
Right. But then
I just
I
don't
mean, all they want is the archway, right? People aren't gonna be getting out of their vehicles.
I know.
Yeah, and I think that's the idea is that
keeps everybody in their
it's
cars.
it's the drive-through.
Gotcha.
I mean, we're letting people sit with, you know, in a classroom for 80 minutes or all day long in elementary. And to me, this seems fairly low risk to have them stay in their vehicle and drive through the archway that's decorated with somebody, you know, even a masked person with a hand sanitized masked person, hands
Handing
out
out and stuff.
hands them some candy. I don't think doesn't seem high risk to me compared to what we're doing every day. Or it seems much lower risk than that.
Agreed. It's outside.
All right, it's not like they're gathering in the gym or they're all gonna.
Outside's in its favor, absolutely.
They're even gonna be in vehicles.
Right,
They're gonna be in their own vehicle. So
So there's no plan for anybody to get out, just to.
Not to my knowledge.
now the kids, I think there will be some adults that are out that are.
They're out there.
It's kind of like when
Kids as
you
they
drove
go.
through in the spring to get your stuff.
Yeah, to pick up your stuff, yeah.
Right.
We did the
You
same
drive
thing,
up.
yeah.
Toss
I wasn't betting at you.
it in.
Frisbee.
Candy. Roll the window down, throw it in. 6 feet away.
Candy
The
can.
football toss.
I'm for it. I mean,
I just didn't know if there was any, you know, if there was an increase, whether there was something that would prohibit us from saying that we could.
Only if Salem becomes a hot spot and then the state says you can or can't do whatever, that would trump anything that would.
Right, we would.
Almost said he's not taking away Halloween.
We're looking to greatly restrict it.
Yes.
We're gonna take it away.
Yeah, it seems fairly low risk.
so I mean, the difference would be from them being out walking
To being in vehicles.
to being in vehicles
Mhm.
and vehicle stuff.
And
That's
we
the
are
plan
only
B,
a backup.
only the plan B, so, yeah.
I agree.
Any further questions or concerns? All those in favor of approving the request from the PTA, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 5-0. Moving down the line, policy review. We don't have any policy review for this meeting, but we will have policies for discussion on the November's agenda. Topics for future board meetings. Anybody have anything they'd like to bring forward for consideration?
Just the special budget meeting.
We just need to set that date.
Can I get back to the board once they get something closer to a critical mass?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then goals, I guess, board goals,
We
we've
need
talked
to,
about
yeah.
that, we need to do that.
But we should do those on separate evenings.
That should be
Yes,
separated.
oh, definitely, 100%.
Too much on,
No,
they're
I
both,
think the budget needs to be just the budget.
budget. Alright, there's no, and please at any time, if something does come to mind, just please shoot an email and we can make sure that that's part of the discussion when we set the agenda. So that's open to at any time. And at this point, I'd like to open the meeting back up for public comment. If there's anybody that has any questions or concerns they'd like to share.
Come on, people.
How many,
We got
like this?
20
20?
right now.
Yeah, they were up to close to 25, I guess.
25,
25.
yeah, 25 is fine.
There must be something that we talked about that sparked some comments.
Nobody?
Alright. Did we give it enough time to unmute?
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Hi.
Oh,
Hey, it's Jane Daly. I'm a teacher, a history teacher, who is not interested in a district clerk position whatsoever. I was just thinking that out.
Oh, come on.
I'm off that list. No, I just wanted to, thank, I guess, for like administrators for all the support they've been giving us. But I think back to kind of, this has been a crazy year. None of us ever experienced any of this. But I guess when we say what do we need, and what could we have? I don't know. I don't think it's just time or for us to be less hard on ourselves, because I mean, teachers, we're always going to be hard on ourselves, so that's always going to be the thing. The time, I don't know, like the resources. The past few days I was thinking, this is as a teacher I was speaking, even to have ways for parents to learn how to kind of help us as far as Google Classroom. It's only been in the past couple of weeks that I realized how much at the family they don't know how to navigate through Google Classroom. And I talked to a couple other friends at different districts, and they've actually offered not only professional development for teachers as far as Google Classroom goes, but also they're starting to now navigate into offering it for parents. And I don't even know how to begin to do that, but we were asking about resources to use, and I was just amazed at how much that I thought parents were able to see on Google Classroom, but they can't see. Like they didn't know, they knew my weekly assignments, but they didn't know individual assignments, or they didn't know to see if a child submitted something or didn't, or if they just submitted something blank. So I don't know if that's something we can look at or something to talk on to, like with administrators to try to figure out. But that was definitely something that, as far as resources,
even a tutorial video maybe too.
Like, because a lot of us get so much feedback from parents saying, you know, what can we do on these remote days? And I'm like, well, check this, and then I realized, oh my gosh, they don't know how to navigate, because they have absolutely no, unless they go on their students' accounts, and then they can see that or something like that. But I mean, the other thing that's been helpful for us is physically we're so close together now. You know, anti-COVID. Now that we're in a construction site and everybody's sharing classrooms on the high school end. The one nice thing, a good thing about all this is how much we have been working together and collaborating. So that's a good thing to see. You know, if we need a lower Lexile reading level, somebody's there to get it for us. If we, you know, special ed questions. So I'm also glad that we're postponing any budget issues because of how much we need each other at this time. So I guess that's my thing, and I'll carry it through with administrators later on this week, and we'll see where we go from that.
Thank you. Good luck
Perfect.
with
No, as a
it.
parent, I think that sounds like a great idea.
Definitely.
You know, reaching out to BOCES, which a lot of these are for, I know we've been working with them and they've been doing professional development for us, but some of it lends itself to, it's very easy to carry over to parents. So
I just did a quick look, because at one point I want to say there's a BOCES page to like all these pieces, but there was a parent section
yeah,
already that's there, and I had thought at one point we had it and actually just shared it with teachers as a resource. I'll go back and refine. If not, it's kind of that parent academy idea that's a good one that we can certainly get back, even if it's just that generic video on here's the basics of Google Classroom.
That's a great idea.
Thank you, Jay.
There are a couple comments. So from Julie Myler, thanked us for the work we do, and then also had a question about under personnel A and B that were tabled. She wanted to just confirm that she just missed that little bit. So
Yeah, both
A and B, right?
A and B were
tabled.
tabled. Any other chats or? Okay, I'll then close the public comment section and entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Just
ooh, that was a tie,
Second.
That's a super tie.
I'll take this
That's like
second.
straight up.
all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And it's for the discussion of personal evaluation,
Employment history of
employment history.
Particular
person.
Particular person. Put that out next time.
Yeah, Dan, what I had done in the chat is I put in the chat that we're in executive session, we'll be back momentarily, and then I just paused it so we don't have this running recording of
Nothing.
dead air for, you know.
Where are we moving to?
I think we should run down to Randy North's room. It looks like that was available. When I went by a couple times, unless he's stuck in the sitting there, so we can slide across to the computer lab or to one of the other classrooms.
Are we on? Okay.
Alright.
Do we have a motion to adjourn our meeting?
So,
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, 5-0. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Do we have anybody left?
Stuck it out.
Now I have to pray that I can read my handwriting.
yeah, I'm not touching anything till you got the,
Okay.
got the stuff.
Oh, I'm not listed as the host anymore, and I think only the host can edit it.
Oh, as far as the chat?
Yeah.
So how do you save it as a Word document?
It's a text file. I
Okay.
can make it a Word document.
It doesn't matter, I just didn't know how you did it. I didn't-